Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, did you know there's a skill many men never learn that ends up seriously limiting your professional success and satisfaction in your love and sex life? I put together a free guide to explain this unknown skill and give you exactly what you need to use it today. Get it by heading over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com or text the word ALIVE, A-L-I-V-E, to 44144. That's 44144. You'll also get access to Man Alive outtakes, raw footage, and bonus videos you can only get there. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. Today's topic is something that is very inspiring to me and something we haven't covered yet. We're going to talk about fatherhood. And I have an amazing guest with us today, Craig Wilkinson. Did I say that right?
You said it perfectly.
Okay, good. And Craig is an inspirational speaker who has a passion for seeing men and women fully alive. He gives keynote talks and facilitates workshops on a variety of transformational topics relevant to home, fatherhood, personal, working life. And you've worked, it sounds like, in the nonprofit sector and socioeconomic development. You've been in the corporate sector. You've worked in strategy and human resource development. So, really you bring a wide range, not only of being a father yourself as well. You have a 24-year-old boy or man now and 21-year-old woman, son and daughter.
Yeah.
But you've also worked with a lot of fathers, in wide ranges of, socioeconomics and ethnicities. It feels like you have this, breadth of seeing fathers of all ages, ranges, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's such an across-the-board issue, isn't it, fatherhood? I mean, it applies to no matter what level of wealth, education, ethnicity, where you come from in the world. It's just so crucial.
Right. So thank you for being here to have this conversation. And, I really want to give men who are fathers, I want to dive into like the heart of the matter, right? Like how can men be the best fathers they can be? Not to try to be perfect and not to try, I want to break that down too, right? Because we're never going to be perfect parents.
Absolutely.
But what's at the heart of it? So let's start with that for you. What is at the heart of being an amazing father?
Well, I mean, if you don't mind me telling a story about how it really started for me,
please,
from my own life. My daughter Blythe, her name is Blythe. When she was, I think, 2.5 years old, 3 years old, doctors said to us that she'd need a small operation on her heart. She had a hole in one of the walls of her heart. And fortunately, with today's technology, it's fantastic. It's just, instead of open heart surgery, it's a catheter that goes into the vein in the groin and goes up and it pops out this little device that closes up the hole. And, it's in and out overnight. So I said to the doc, please can I just come into theater with her and just hold her in my arms as she goes under anesthetic? Because, sending a little girl, you've got a
oh my yourself. God. I mean, anytime someone says small surgery and heart, I'm like, oh.
It doesn't go together, does it? Yeah, no. Exactly. So I said to the doc, please can I just come in and hold her in my arms as she goes under anesthetic, just to minimize any trauma, so she wouldn't be wheeled into this theater alone with all these strange faces. So he was very kind. He said, yes. So I put on the gown and the mask, and he actually let me hold her in my arms and put the mask over her face as she fell asleep for the op. And then, of course, when she came around, I was in the recovery theater, and it was a great success, in and out overnight. But a month later, we were at my house, and we were having a bit of a gathering. In South Africa, we call it a braai, sort of cooking meat outdoors. And we were standing around on the lawn, and one of my friends said to Blythe, she was standing next to me, he said to her, Blythe, I believe you were in hospital recently. And she looked up at him and she said to him, she said, yes. She said, my heart was broken. She said, but my daddy fixed it.
Oh,
and Shayna, it was, I had to leave and go and gather my, it was just a tear.
Right. I can imagine just falling apart hearing that.
Oh man, it just, but it made me realize who I was to her. I was
Uh-huh.
this man who was her hero. I fixed her heart. And I realized that I did in many ways hold her heart and my son's heart in my
Right.
hands, and how
Yes.
I lived my life and what I did with them, and meant the world to them.
Yes.
So it really raised this question, and I concluded from that experience that fatherhood is this parallel journey. So on the one hand, you've got techniques of being a great dad, and how to father and how to discipline and all that stuff, which we can go into. But prior to that, it's who am I as a man, and what am I imparting to them? Because we can only give what we have to give, can't we? If someone comes to you and says, "I want to borrow $100," you can do it. If someone says, "I want to borrow $1 million," that's a different story. If you don't have it, you can't give it. And our kids, boys and girls, ask us as dads so many questions. And if we don't have it in us to give, we can't give it. So it's this parallel journey of working on myself as a man. So I need to be, as a dad, will work towards being the man I want my son to be, and work towards being the man I'd like my daughter to be with one day. And that's the heart of it, because you're imparting as a man to your kids as you are as a woman.
Yes.
The primary role model of a child is their same gender parent.
Yep.
So a girl will look to her mom to model what it means to be a woman. Mm-hmm. Dad can't do that. A boy will look to a man, his dad, to model what it means to be a man. A woman can't do that. So there are questions that our kids ask us as men and as women that the opposite gender cannot answer. And that's why both are so crucial.
Yeah. And I know, as I was doing some of my research on you, one of the things you said that was UNICEF made this, comment that absent fathers are the single biggest social issue of our times. And that someone else said the damage of humanity done by the epidemic of unfathered men and women is greater than the damage done by war and disease combined. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, someone's also recently done a correlation between all the shootings in the US, the school shootings and fatherlessness, etc. If you look at the correlation between fatherlessness and almost every single social ill in teenagers, whether it's early teen pregnancy, drug addiction, rape, etc., there's a very strong correlation. Also, correlation between the worst dictators of the world, the Hitlers and the Mussolinis, and their relationship with their dad. And it's got a lot to do with the fact that as a young boy growing up, and let's be honest, we're talking about dysfunction now, in ways, and the damage to humanity. We're talking about war and disease, as you said. The vast majority of violent damage is perpetrated by men. Yeah. And the reason is when boys are growing up, they have, if you go into the core desire of a boy's heart.
Right. And I just want to actually make a point, one point too, that now we're talking about self, right? So these men who are listening, you who are listening, are probably not in the realm of an absent father, though you might be, but this is also for yourself and what you got, to become the man you are today.
100%. Yeah. Because, most men, most humans were not fathered perfectly. And as you said earlier, none of us are perfect parents or perfect fathers, and that's perfectly fine. I often say to fathers, the two most important words in your dictionary as a dad are be there. Be there. You can mess it up slightly, but if you are there, present and engaged, chances are you're gonna be a good dad, as opposed to just not being. And being there doesn't just mean being there physically, Shana. You can. Someone said you can grow up in a household with two parents, but still have an orphaned heart.
Yes.
Parents are not engaged and with you emotionally. And in today's world of social media distractions and devices, it's very easy for parents to be present but not present. Yeah. Just not engaged. So going back to that core question of a boy's heart, this is a weekend seminar we're doing in a short podcast, but if every boy has this desire on his heart, someone put it beautifully. He said 3 desires: for a battle to fight, for an adventure to live, and for a beauty to pursue. And it's quite beautiful when you look at the heart of a man. You look at all the movies men have made famous,
a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to, you said, rescue or pursue or something like that?
Rescue or pursue, or to win their heart over. You look at every movie that men have made famous, they have at their core those 3 things, don't they? The battle, the Dr. No, the Mr. Evil, whatever it is they'll be fighting. You have the crazy car chases and the mayhem and the adventure. And then you always have the beauty, the reason that we're doing all this stuff, to win the heart.
Yeah.
And it's quite beautiful. It's very simplistic, but it's beautiful. But what comes out of that for a boy is every boy has a question on his heart, and that question is, and he brings it to his father, not his mom. And that question is, Dad, do I have what it takes?
God, that makes me cry.
am I enough? Am I
Yeah.
strong enough, fast enough, cool enough? And the father needs to answer that question. And generally, men grow up and haven't had that question fully answered. And when we haven't, we do one of two things. We fail to use our strength. We become passive or withdraw, or we misuse our strength. So we spend our whole life either believing I'm not enough and therefore withdrawing and not even trying to compete and not standing up to the plate and being the man.
Yeah.
Or we spend our entire lives trying to prove that we are the man and therefore the macho and all the bull. And often it's a combination of both. We can withdraw into all kinds of addictions, and we can also try and be the macho. And those kind of behaviors cause huge destruction. So if you look at war and gender-based violence and abuse and all this kind of stuff, it's rooted in that. Men who actually don't believe they have what it takes. If you take a man who's really been fathered well and mothered well, and he knows he's got what it takes, and there's no need to perform to be macho, to show off. There's also no need to withdraw from a challenge. There's also no need to withdraw in all kinds of addictions to kind of cover up pain.
I mean, this is all so important, and I agree. And so many of the men I work with, there is this kind of letting go of needing to prove something, or letting go of these ideas that I'm not enough, or I'm not manly enough, I'm not powerful enough. So I definitely have seen over, almost a couple decades, men continuing to struggle with that question. And it sounds like, what you're saying, and I want to focus, I think we could talk for days and years about that, but I also want to focus on the fatherhood piece and how do men answer that question for their children, right? Whether it's a boy or a girl, how do they be there in a way that question gets answered and kind of solidified, that worthiness gets solidified in a child?
Right. It's a beautiful question. I mean, if I can just briefly talk, so girls have a slightly different question of their dad. And that question is, Dad, am I worth pursuing? Am I worth fighting for? Am I lovely? So I often encourage dads to romance their daughter, just pursue her heart. So often I remember so clearly when I used to come home from work, I used to run an NGO called Outward Bound. I used to come home from work, and my son Luke used to come running out and tackle me and, Dad. And I realized now in hindsight, he was asking me, Dad, look at me. Am I strong enough? Am I tough? See how strong I am. And I mean, by wrestling with him and engaging with him and tussling with him and saying, you're the man, not in a flattering, untruthful way, but just in that engaging way. I was saying, and I didn't know at the time, but I was saying, Luke, you're the man, you're tough enough, you've got it. But often my daughter, she would also come running. I mean, she's a bit of a tomboy. She's the one who used to climb the trees and all that. But she would often sit inside at a table and wait for me to come and find her.
Interesting.
And I realized in hindsight, she was kind of waiting for Dad to pursue her, to kind of come out of my way and go and romance and seek out her heart. So the core questions of a boy and a girl need to be answered by Dad. And number one, it's by being present and engaging on a daily basis, engaging in every way, reading, playing with them, chatting with them, conversing with them. But I came up with these 12 dad verbs. And I think these are, if you get these 12 right, and we can go through them one by one and fairly quickly, just in terms of if you do these things and grow in these skills, you will answer the question along the way. Because
I love it.
That you don't answer this question once, and you don't answer it at one age. You answer it throughout their lives in 1,000 different ways. And
well, that's brilliant, right? Like there's no way you could answer it once. And in every age, and I've seen this, I'm only 6 years in, you're 24 years in. He's a different being who has a different way of asking that same question.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's interesting as a mom, and I do a lot of work with single moms, and I think I have such an admiration for single moms, because I think it's one of the toughest tasks in the world, is the natural inclination of a mom is to nurture and protect. And it's beautiful. It's exactly, we need that. Whereas at some point in time, a boy is asking the question, have I got what it takes?
Yeah.
So for instance, he says, hey, Mom, I want to climb that tree. The mom's natural instinct is to protect, say, don't climb the tree, it's dangerous.
Yeah, be careful.
Be careful, exactly. Whereas what he wants you to say is, my boy, do it. You've got it. You can
go for it. Do it.
Go for it, exactly. And a dad will say, climb the tree. Son, I'll catch you if you fall. If you don't, we'll go to the hospital together. That kind of, but it's telling the boy, you've got it, So
I have to watch out for that. I have to be I am very aware that I want to raise him to feel confident and to take those risks, and that I
Right.
can't walk around saying, oh, be careful, oh, be careful, oh, be careful.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a place for that because, he feels loved and protected, but there's a time when he needs more than that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay. So you said there's 12 dad verbs. I love that.
Right. So the first dad verb, the very first one is to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that every single human being has this deep desire to be seen, don't we? Often people fall in love with the first person that gets them.
Right. Okay,
that
that is a profound statement right there. Yeah. It's true, and it's caused many relationships and whatever, right? Because we fall in love.
It might be wrong in every other way, but they, you can imagine this guy arriving at your doorstep as a father, with dreadlocks and motorbike pumping, and all kinds of, and you just think, oh my goodness, and he says, I want to see your daughter, and you say, no, you don't, and you hear your daughter's sweet voice, oh Dad, he's come for me, and you say, why? And she says, Dad, he really gets me, that whole thing of he gets me is so crucial. So for a dad, and this applies equally to a mom, we need to be the first man who truly sees our daughter, sees our son, who gets them, who knows what makes their heart come alive, knows what their favorite color is, what their favorite food is, what their fears, desires, just truly get them, see them. And that's the first dad verb.
Beautiful. I mean, it's almost stunning. Like I can feel, it's all really moving. I'm loving the way you're talking about this. So yeah, keep going.
Okay, so number 2 dad verb is to identify, and that's slightly different from see, because I say to dads, we don't write the script for our children's lives, and often dads want to do that. They want their son to be a football player, or their son to be whatever they weren't or would like to be. But so we don't write the script, but we help them to read the script that's already written on their hearts.
Yeah.
So whatever they are, and this is not gender rolled. I mean, if your daughter wants to be a fighter pilot, as a father, you need to see that.
Yep.
And you need to identify that and help her to see it and tell her it's okay. And you need to, if your son wants to be a ballerina, and you're a macho bodybuilder, see the ballerina.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of reading the script that's already on their heart. And the only way we can do that is by exposing them to so many different options, just to help them discover who they are, what they love, who they are, etc., etc. So this thing of identifying is so crucial. The third dad verb is to engage. So, and this is such a crucial thing for dads and in our crazy world. The stats around the actual time that parents spend properly engaged with their children every day is
right. Versus distracted and doing other things at the same time.
Distracted and watching stuff and YouTubing and social mediaing and just rushing from this to this. So I say to parents and dads, there's no substitute for quantity time. We try and squeeze in quality time. That's fantastic. But quality time, and you think about this with friends as well, quality time happens when you're busy having quantity time. When you're hanging out. The most beautiful moments happen spontaneously when you're hanging out. That party happens, you start dancing, you decide to go wherever. It's because you're hanging out. And we've got to just hang out with our kids where we're fully engaged. And have dates with them. Say to your son as a father, as a mom, let's go, let's have a play date. What do you want to do? To your daughter, let's go on a date and treat her like a princess, open the door for her. So during that time of engagement is when you can see them and you can truly identify them. So that's dad verb number 3.
Beautiful.
You want me to just keep moving?
Yeah, keep going. I mean, these are, it's interesting. Okay, 12 sounds like a lot, but I'm right with you, and I just feel like, God, if men, whoever's listening to this, just getting to have these such strong foundations, it creates a whole different way of engaging with your kids.
It's beautiful, and and it's such a mutually beneficial thing, because in this process, remember that parallel journey.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to see your kid, you're actually seeing. It starts by seeing, who am I?
Yeah.
And often we weren't seen. I mean, so many kids I grew up totally unseen.
Mm-hmm.
Our father's generation was, kids are seen and not heard, and there's just none of that kind of engagement, or the cookie cutter dad, I call them. That has a shape in mind that they want you to be, and you're this malleable dough, and they just come.
Right. Right. And then the pain of, I didn't have a role model, so I don't even necessarily know how to do this as a father, but then I wasn't given this. And that's, painful to recognize as you're trying to give your child something that you didn't receive. That can be heartbreaking.
100%. But Shana, for me, being a dad has been the most inspiring thing in the world, because there's nothing in the world, and you must experience this as a mom, nothing in the world makes you want to be okay and live right more than because your kids need you to.
Yep.
So it inspires. So it can be painful. I mean, it's a refathering process. We're actually fathering ourselves as we father our kids.
Yes.
And that applies to women and men.
Yep.
So the fourth dad verb is to affirm. And so now you've seen your kids and you've engaged with them and you've identified them. And now you're saying, you know what I see is good. You're affirming them. You're saying, and there's a different kind of affirmation, but there are two types of affirmation. One is the being affirmation and one is the doing affirmation. So doing affirmation is easy. Little Johnny gets a good report card. Well done. He scores a goal on the soccer field. Well done. That's for what he's done. But the being affirmation is to say, you know what? Who you are, just who you are, nothing to do with what you've done is good and valid.
That one gets missed a lot.
We don't. I mean, I didn't grow up with that at all.
No.
It's all performance oriented. If you perform well, great, you get the accolades. But to be affirmed for simply who you are. So I used to take Luke on my lap and just say, look, you're such a great kid. And he'd say, Dad, why? What have I done? Nothing.
Nothing. Right. You don't have to do anything.
And who you are is just so good. The world's blessed and a better place because you're in it. That kind of affirming of this, the very core of their being. It's just a beautiful thing that a lot of us miss. And from that, the fifth dad verb is to bless. Now, it sounds like a strange word, and it sounds similar to affirm, but the blessing thing is the blessing of the father on a child. So in other words, son, daughter, you have my approval. Who you are, daughter, as that fighter pilot, I approve.
And how is that different from affirming?
So affirming is when you actually verbally giving them an affirmation. You're saying, "Oh, well done," or "Gee, you're a good kid," or something. But a blessing is more of a cloak. It's more of an overriding sense of, I have my dad's approval.
Yes,
he's got my back. He's got me. And to do that, I often use, you use events like milestones. So you use an event like, when my son turned 10, we had a big thing, double digits. So it's kind of a little milestones and tradition, and you can set your own family traditions and do things where you're kind of imparting on him your blessing as a dad.
Wow, I love that.
You're 12 now. Wow, Dad, this is so happy. And and Shana, a lot of these apply to moms as well. I've written this specifically for dads because dads don't generally.
I can see a lot in here that, right, it doesn't just have to come from a man, but this is great for fathers and mothers.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's that scene from the Dead Poets Society, that Robin Williams movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a beautiful movie where, Robin Williams was this fantastic English teacher, and one of his students wanted to be an actor, but he got into the school play and he just loved it. But his dad wanted him to be a businessman, so his dad refused to come to the play and actually said to him, "I don't want you to be in the play." And this child ended up committing suicide, and what he didn't have was his dad's blessing.
Right.
And his dad's, son, I've got you. I don't mind if you're not a businessman. You're an actor, and that's beautiful.
Whoever you are, I bless that. Whatever you do, I bless that.
Exactly. That's exactly that. I mean, and men and women who go into life with the sense of their father's blessing just carry themselves differently. There's such a sense of, and that's a beautiful gift we can give.
Yeah.
So the sixth dad verb is to love. And I mean, that sounds very obvious, and some of these aren't. But, Shakespeare said, he does not love that does not show his love. And so love is not a word, it's a verb. It's something we do.
Right, as an act. Or
love by acting, by doing and engaging. And there's a beautiful book written called The Languages of Love. It's also about finding out, how does your child want to be loved? Some kids love affection. Some kids love just hanging out together. Some kids love, and it's the same as men and women in partnership. What is the love language
right.
you like to
Gary Chapman. That's a beautiful book that I've seen help many couples. And I hadn't really thought of applying it to a kid as well.
Very much so. So kids are different, in terms of how they like to be loved. But my advice to fathers is be lavish. Just go overboard. Be lavish. I mean, I'm a terrible singer, and I used to sing to Blythe. We had this particular song, That song, "You're the most beautiful girl in the world. You're the reason why God." I won't even try and sing it. But whenever it came on the radio, I used to sing this, and she used to get all coy. "Oh, Dad, it'd be silly." And then one day we were driving in the car, and the song came on, and I was distracted, and I didn't sing it. And she got so indignant. She said, "Dad, there's our song.
This is my song, our song. Why are you not singing?"
Exactly. What's wrong with you? So that whole concept of just being lavish in loving your children and in showing them, let them be in no doubt you adore them, and that's
amazing. And I love the addition too of identifying how, really figuring out, how do your children like to be loved? How do they actually receive love is a beautiful part.
Because that's part of identifying and seeing them too. Hey, Dad, that's me.
Yeah.
And you develop secret stuff that you love doing, and like my son and I love hiking. My daughter and I have got these little things we love doing together, and it's just it's your way of loving them, and it forms such a beautiful, intimate bond that no one else can have.
Yes,
and they'll never get that.
Beautiful, and it really sets up a foundation too for adult relationships where you then, your bar is set there instead of I can be with someone who abuses me or who doesn't really see me or who doesn't really, support me.
You're so right. It does. You hit the nail on the head. It sets the tone where they will not accept, because they know what true love is and intimacy and being seen and loved, and they won't accept second best.
Yeah.
Especially with a girl and a father, you set the tone for that. Yeah. And I think for a son and a mom, that's also so crucial. You show them what the love of a woman looks like.
Yeah.
And they won't settle for anything else.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right. So number 7.
Number 7, you're counting. So this number 7 is to nurture. And I love, for women, nurturing comes naturally, doesn't it? But there's something so powerfully beautiful about masculine nurture. So I talk about dads creating this lap of grace. So it's an area around you where it's just grace. It's a safe harbor. You come there as a kid and you're safe. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, you are safe because dad's there. So if you think of the analogy of a seed, you go to a nursery, you buy seeds, and inherent in that seed is the capacity to become a massive oak tree.
Yes.
But how much of its potential is realized depends very much on the way it's nurtured. So the kind of soil, the nutrients, the watering, when it starts growing a little bit, are you protecting it from the elements, from insects, from wind? So you see trees. We've got a waterfront here in Cape Town where these trees have grown, but they kind of stunted and they've grown sideways because of the wind. And kids survive. They're very tough. But if you want them to reach their maximum potential, you as a dad create this environment in which they can flourish and thrive. So someone said that every father is the architect of his own home. So you create an environment of nurture where kids are safe.
Beautiful.
They're okay.
Yeah.
The 8th dad verb is to protect. And this is interesting because Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychology, he said, I can think of no greater need in childhood than the protection of a father. And there's just something about a dad that you protect your children. So you've got them. You've got their corner. So and in today's world, it's a bit more tricky. It's not like fighting off saber-toothed tigers. It's kind of fighting off a lot of, it's understanding what their threats are. And a lot of them are Wi-Fi based and internet based.
At this point.
Kids are getting, harassed on social media, etc. It's, as a father, knowing that stuff and putting in place protective measures. It's when your kid stays. I was amazed as a father how many kids ended up spending the night at my house that were friends of my kids, but I'd never met their parents.
Interesting.
They were staying over, and I would never allow my kids to stay over, but I'd go and meet the father, look him in the eye, shake his hand very firmly, and just make sure that whatever environment they're in, I know it, I know where they are, I know their number, and just protect.
Yes.
It's a basic thing.
Yep.
Dad verb number 9, again, is one of those very obvious ones. It's to provide. And the thing with providing is that often we get so wrapped up in keeping up with the Joneses that we don't realize that really what kids need, they need a good education, they need a stable home, and they need you. And that's all we need to provide. It's not about how many flat screen TVs or how big they are. It's about provision. And this often comes into play with separated and divorced couples, when you get the dad that's focusing on his own pleasures and desires, but not on the needs of the kids.
Right.
And I mean, our kids, we're there for them. They're not there for us. And we brought them in the world, and we need to do whatever we can to provide them with the best that they need.
Yeah.
Not to spoil, because that's the other extreme. Is
right. Not to spoil. And that is interesting, right? Not to have them think that they can have anything they want whenever they want it, but also to have them have that foundation of, I can have what I want, or I can go get what I want, or create what I want, or something like that.
Yeah. Because by giving it to them too easily, they become entitled.
Yes.
And we wreck them for life. That's a crucial.
I was thinking about that the other day with my son, where it's like, all right, I want to help him have his emotions and not shut them down, but also not, encourage him to attack or blame, right? Or to help him feel like he can be the source of creating what he wants, but not to feel entitled. There's all these, there's this balance in there.
Very much. No, you hit the nail on the head. There is very much that balance. And I mean, the fact, being a conscious mom, which you very evidently are, it's a starting point, isn't it? Because we won't, as we always said earlier, we won't get it perfectly right, but knowing and being conscious of that balance, you're aware of it, and you play with it, and you get it mostly right.
Yeah. We do our best.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love what someone said. He said, before I had kids, I had 6 theories, solid theories about how to raise kids. He said, now I've got 6 kids and no theories.
Oh my God, I love that.
Because there's an art to it. It's not there's no guaranteed outcome, but there's a very sure outcome if you do these things and do them well and do them consciously.
Yeah. Right.
So where are we? We're number
10, I think. Yeah.
So number 10 is to teach. With our children, we get to outsource so much of their education to educational institutions. If they learn a sport, we'll outsource that to a coach. But something you alluded to just prior to this is what we cannot outsource and mustn't outsource is the teaching of life skills, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, EQ. We are the headmaster and headmistress in that school. That's what we teach them. So the whole thing of discipline, the whole thing of cause and effect, the whole thing of delayed gratification, of good manners, of respect for other people and elders, of love. These are these basic emotional intelligence and core skills. We cannot outsource that. A lot of parents, if we don't do that, what happens is social media teaches them that. Peers teach them that, and what they teach them is often, they don't. No. In fact, they do a great job of screwing it up completely. That's the problem. Yep. So we need to take the reins of that, teaching them the EQ, the life skills, how to manage themselves, money, how to have relationships with other people, etc., etc. That we cannot outsource or abdicate on that.
Yeah.
Number 11 is an interesting one. It's discipline. So a lot of modern parents, I'm not so sure in the US, but here a lot of modern parents they make the mistake of being their kids' friends.
Uh-huh.
And that's a mistake, because there are times when you're a friend, but before friend, you're a parent.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're a parent, you're going to make unpopular decisions, which are very anti-friend,
right.
And they're not going to make them very endearing to you. And but you're not there to be their friend. You're there to be their
and we're not there to be liked, right? I mean, that's the one thing I have to keep reminding myself. You're not going to like me all the time, right?
Exactly, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. And our insecurities as parents come out here, because if we need to be liked by our kids, we're going to compromise raising them, because we're going to make decisions based on popularity and not based on what's good for them.
Right. Yeah. That is one that I work with myself, right? And seeing that parallel journey again, like, okay, I really want people to like me. And yet if that's what I'm basing these decisions in, right, then I'm not basing it on what's good for him.
100%, Shane. I mean, that's always the challenge of this parallel journey, because we're here for them. We brought them in the world, and it's not about us; it's about them.
Yeah.
And having said that, discipline also withholds from them certain things. Dad, you've got this thing called the Father Christmas dad, or the Uncle Dad, they call it. Especially in separated families, where the dad will sweep in on a weekend and just spoil the kid, with this and that, and take them out to their best restaurant, and and then they go back to mom, and then mom has to pick up all the pieces and do all the disciplining. So you got to do all the slog stuff, the hard stuff, get them to bed on time, do the homework, and all that kind of stuff. And it's difficult because that's not the popular stuff.
Right.
Both parents need to be very actively conscious of this. And this is, I think, where particularly dads can mess up. They come in and just spoil. Be the popular dad, be the Mr. Cool guy.
Yeah.
But as a dad, you can't, it's not about being the cool dad. It's about being the dad that loves his kids. And the other side of the coin of love is discipline.
Yes.
So absolutely crucial.
And I love, actually, there's something that speaks to me about having discipline, as number 11, right? There's
right.
Identifying, engaging, affirming, blessing, loving, nurturing, and getting to the discipline piece. Not that it's not important, but these are all important, but that love is the foundation too, that seeing as the foundation.
So much. And I'm glad you raised that, because if you do any of these in isolation without the others, it becomes imbalanced. If you love without discipline, you're going to spoil your kids.
Right.
If you discipline without love, you're going to break them.
Right.
You need both, and that balance is so crucial.
Yep. Yeah.
Your kids don't mind being disciplined if they know that you adore them.
Right.
And doing it out of love. They don't.
Right. And even if they don't, they act like they don't like it in the moment, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad for them, or that ultimately,
absolutely,
they don't need it.
They'll come around. Yeah, because they know you've got their back.
Yep. Yeah.
And
all
then
right, what's number 12?
Number 12, trumpet sound, is to model, and that means ultimately that our kids listen far more to what we do than what we say. And there's a lovely illustration of a guy in England sitting in a pub, his favorite seat in his favorite pub after work one night, and it's snowing outside, and he feels this tug at his elbow, and he turns around, and there's his 5-year-old son in the pub saying, "Hey, Dad." And he turns around, he says, "Son, how did you find me?" And he said, "Oh, Dad, it was easy. I just followed your footprints in the snow." And it was a revelation to that dad that he realized, how I live my life and how I walk my steps is actually what my son is going to do. And so this issue of, you cannot stand there puffing away at a cigarette and telling your kids that smoking is not, you shouldn't smoke. It just doesn't. So if you want your kids to read. If you want your kids to love people, love people. If you want your kids to be disciplined, be disciplined. You want them to eat well, eat well. It's just, there's no substitute for modeling how you want them to be, because they're going to pick up on that. Yes. I was just having one of those funny moments of being in the car, driving, those moments of where I want to express frustration, but then I'm like, I often find myself saying, that person just made a move that was not very safe. And then I find myself saying, and I've done that before too. So now I'm trying to have compassion for that person and kind of like talking out loud that whole journey of, okay, how do I want to think about people? How do I want to treat people? And knowing, right, that he's picking up on all of that. Very much so. That's your primary lesson that you're sharing with him. He's feeling that. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is, it's really deeply touching to me. I mean, I think, as a parent myself, there's just something so, like you said, fundamental about learning through, learning how to take care of our children, right? And then learning how to love myself. Very much so. And give myself these things too. And for the dads listening, right? Like giving these things to ourselves as we're giving them to our children, and getting help, right? Sometimes we do need like coaching from you or a therapist or working with me or someone else to actually really get some of those things that we didn't have when we were young, or that we didn't receive when we were young. 100%. And I mean, you work with men extensively, and I really salute you for that, and take my hat off to you. And you know that men, we don't like asking for directions too. We don't like being vulnerable. We don't like, I say to a lot of dads, this being a dad is the most important role in your entire life, because you've got a human, or more than one, totally dependent on you, and you're the most important man in their lives, and you'll have the biggest impact. And so we go for coaching for anything else. When we learn to play the guitar, we go for, but when it comes to being a dad, we need to look for help and advice and get coaching, because it is the most important role. Men we think we've got this thing. That's our mantra now. I've got this. I'm a man. I've got it. And it's okay not to, because
Yes.
to look for assistance from others.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I was going to ask you what you want to leave men with, but that may be it too, right? Like, you don't have to, it's okay to say, you know what, I don't got this one, or I need some help here.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to leave men with?
Well, in fact, I mean, Shona, you'd probably agree. I mean, don't you as a woman find it more manly when a guy is able to say that than a guy who's acting as though he doesn't need any help or anybody?
Yeah.
It's manly to be able to say, you know what, in this particular area, I need some assistance. And,
Yeah.
would you, I mean, it takes courage to do that.
Exactly. I mean, I see it as courageous. I was doing another interview recently where, can't remember exactly the topic, but I was saying, when I see a man, even when I see a man cry, right, there's something to me. And I know I've done a lot of training and a lot of work to get myself to the point where I can see a man cry and not go into this immediate, oh God, I'm losing my support, or I'm losing my person who's
Right.
going to see me, right? So I know it takes something for us to be able to do this with each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, it moves my heart. It opens me. It has me feel like, wow, we're both human. And I can admit also when I don't have it, or I don't know the way.
Right. I mean, there are those four faces of true masculinity, which are so beautiful, and they're all necessary. One is the king. There's a time when you've got to take control and you've got to make decisions and you've got to make it happen. There's the warrior, the time when, no matter what you're going through, you put on your warrior face and you just make it happen. You suck it up. And there's the lover, and that's the vulnerable, soft, loving side. And then there's the friend. You stand by someone. So those four faces at different times in a man's life are all so crucial and also necessary. And if you've just got one without the other, you're not the complete man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being an example of a man with so much depth and heart and strength and courage and integrity. My heart feels really, really moved right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do and for the opportunity of being on the show. I mean, there's the two books that I've written, the Dad book, which has got the 12 Dad Verbs in it, and then the other one, It's a Dad, that's for expectant fathers, just to prepare them. They're both available online at the dadbook.co.za.
The first one's called The Dad Book, and the second one's called It's a Dad.
Cool. Well, the first one's just called Dad, How to Be the Father Your Children Need.
Great.
And the second one, It's a Dad. You get it's a boy, it's a girl, it's a dad. Okay, how am I going to be a dad?
Awesome. So those are available on your website or on Amazon?
On Amazon, yeah. But if you go to the website, which is www.thedadbook.co.za, or ZA.
Dadbook.co.za is that South African?
That's a South African website, yeah. But
okay,
it is
great.
now on Amazon, yeah.
Perfect. And I'll put the link in the show notes here so men can find it.
Tremendous, Shona.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure. And keep doing your great work.
Thank you. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.